Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story that is absolutely fundamental to how our modern world operates. We're talking about the invisible digital infrastructure that powers literally everything around us. I mean, from global corporate banking systems right up to the absolute bleeding edge of modern AI. Today, we're going to decode the architecture of information itself and dive into the wild rise of Oracle's empire.
It's a massive question, right? I mean, think about it. When you swipe a credit card at the store, when an AI generates a response for you, or even when a massive cargo ship crosses the ocean, whose digital highways are those data packets actually traveling on? To answer that, we have to look back at an epic narrative involving a high-stakes technological heist, some absolutely brilliant mathematical abstraction, and the unapologetic building of a corporate empire.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Flat File Panopticon and the 1970s Global Data Bottleneck.
Picture this. It's the 1970s. Hardware is scaling at this militaristic lightning speed thanks to Intel microchips, but the actual mechanisms for storing data, completely broken. Notice the stark contrast we're looking at here. On the left is the old bottleneck, what you could call the sedentary scribe. These were rigid, hierarchical flat files, all bound together by these hardwired pointer chains, just structurally delayed. But on the right, that's the escape route. The liquid data hub, beautifully organized into highly abstract, standardized liquid SQL tables.
You have to understand, under that old flat file system, information was incredibly, unbelievably brittle, locked in silos. If you were a corporate manager and you just wanted to cross-reference an inventory item with a customer's zip code, you couldn't just ask the computer, no way. You needed an elite team of IT high priests to manually write specialized COBOL scripts just to tunnel through the data. And if you tried to add just a single column, boom. It could literally crash the entire corporate software grid. It was an absolute nightmare.
Moving right along to Section 2, IBM's blunder, Project Oracle, and the seed of an empire. So how exactly did we escape that data prison? Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. It actually starts back in 1970. An IBM researcher named Dr. Edgar F. Codd published this brilliant theoretical math blueprint proposing the relational database. But IBM? They just buried it. They completely sidelined it to protect their massive, lucrative mainframe leases. A huge strategic blunder. Enter Larry Ellison in 1977. He intercepts this public blueprint, sees the future, and launches a startup with just $2,000 executing this historic technological end-around.
Now, what's really wild here is that this wasn't backed by your standard Silicon Valley venture capital. It was actually funded by a classified CIA contract, codenamed Project Oracle, to track foreign assets. While Ellison served as the strategic architect, his co-founder, Bob Miner, was the engine guy. Miner basically worked in the dead of night, hand-coding the entire database engine in low-level PDP-11 assembly language. He somehow managed to stuff these advanced B-tree indexing algorithms into just 128 kilobytes of memory to get microsecond speed. Just incredible engineering.
So by 1979, they rebrand for the commercial market. But get this, what do they call their very first release? Version 2. Literally, there was no version 1. It was a brilliantly audacious, predatory marketing trick. Ellison knew the conservative Fortune 500 CIOs wouldn't trust an initial untested release from a tiny startup company. So labeling it version 2, it instantly signaled battle-tested stability. They won their trust and their capital right out of the gate. All right, Section 3, the doctrine of portability and the C language rewrite. Establishing an absolute monopoly required a massive technical shift. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison here is the massive risk they took in 1983. Bob Miner's team actually threw out their blistering fast assembly code and rewrote the entire database core in the C programming language. Traditional engineers at the time thought this was sheer madness because C ran slower and was compiler dependent. But Ellison, he wasn't playing a coding game, he was playing a game of macroeconomics. Assembly locked you into one machine. C made you infinitely portable.
And this right here brought about the ultimate platform lock. Because C is machine agnostic, Oracle can take its pristine source core and deploy it onto literally any machine on Earth. We're talking from a Unix workstation all the way up to an IBM mainframe. This absolute portability turned Oracle into this sort of shape-shifting predator. They colonized corporate server ecosystems seamlessly because companies could upgrade their physical hardware without ever having to scrap their Oracle data models.
Which brings us to Section 4, the savage sales crusade and the culture of aggressive exertion.
With the ultimate software weapon finally in hand, the tone shifted drastically from abstract code to all-out corporate warfare. Ellison completely rejected the polite, collaborative consensus of early Silicon Valley. Instead, he engineered a hyper-aggressive paramilitary sales culture, famously reinforcing it with this exact quote from Genghis Khan. It is not sufficient that I succeed. All others must fail. It was the foundational logic of a totally unapologetic crusade for dominance.
This whole operation ran like a turbine engine. Let's walk through it. Step 1. Upfront marketing blasts, where salespeople pressured massive corporations into buying multi-year licenses for server capacities they wouldn't even need for years. Step 2. Mandatory confrontation, driven by these incredibly savage quarter-end deadlines. If a 20-something sales rep hit their quota, boom, instant millionaire. Miss it twice, you're instantly fired. This ruthless system created a totally unsiloed exponential sales boom.
But when you push an engine that hard into the red, eventually, it's gonna blow. In 1990, aggressive salespeople began booking future, unmaterialized licenses just to hit their immediate bonuses. The whole revenue recognition loop exploded violently. Oracle had to report massive losses, restate earnings twice, and they suffered a catastrophic 80% collapse in their stock price. They were on the absolute edge of bankruptcy. So how on earth does a company survive that?
Well, you survive it through sheer, unadulterated structural dependency. Ellison fired the rogue executives, tightened up the controls, and pushed out version 7. But the real truth was, Oracle already owned the core data infrastructure of these global corporations, and you simply cannot easily uninstall the nervous system of your own business. This structural lock-in is exactly what pulled Oracle back from the brink and permanently locked customers in, solidifying them as an undisputed enterprise juggernaut.
Okay, fast forward to the present day. Section 5, the matrix of modern AI and Phase 7 infrastructure. What's genuinely fascinating about this whole story is that the exact same architectural philosophy that underpinned those 1977 PDP-11 tables is currently driving our 2026 AI infrastructure. We can track this mathematically unbroken continuum across 3 massive transitions. First, the application inversion in the 90s, building the e-business suite to lock in human resources and ERP logic. Second, the cloud pivot to building high-performance decentralized hubs. And finally, Phase 7 AI infrastructure, the true foundation of the cognitive revolution.
And this brilliantly illustrates what's happening right now inside Cerebral Valley in San Francisco. Generative AI titans like OpenAI and Anthropic are compiling machine intelligence, sure, but they rely completely on Oracle's physical foundries to do it. Oracle's flat RDMA network architecture minimizes latency friction, which allows tens of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs to seamlessly talk to each other and train layered neural transformers in real time. So decades later, the AI revolution is still fundamentally relying on Oracle's liquid infrastructure.
There's actually a permanent physical landmark to this enduring legacy. If you look at Oracle's original headquarters at Redwood Shores, you'll see the famous emerald cylinders. These towers were explicitly built to be shaped like massive relational database storage icons, rising right out of the water. They stand as a literal, geometric manifestation of the invisible data loops that fund this empire, a constant reminder of the absolute power of abstracting reality into liquid tables.
Which brings us right back to our ultimate final question: who truly controls the cognitive infrastructure of human civilization? From a tiny $2,000 startup in 1977 to the massive AI foundries of today, the answer traces back to an unwavering belief in pure abstraction and absolute ruthless competitive grit. The highways of our digital world were paved by those who saw the bottleneck and had the audacity to rewrite the rules. I really hope this explainer has shifted how you view the invisible scaffolding of our world. Until next time, keep questioning the architecture around you.